I remember when I was little, before I started going to school, there'd be like months where no one would come to a house or visit us. And I used to swim in the floods, and there'd be like spiders like as big as your hand, like floating down the river. My dad was like real abusive, like a lot of domestic violence, still have, and had bad ADHD as a kid. I was illiterate till I was in my mid-20s. Couldn't read, couldn't write, couldn't spell. I moved away when I was like 16, moved away from home, left for boxing. To be a fighter, you have to be a little bit crazy.
Do you feel like they're pushing it onto kids, man?
I feel they're trying to breed it out of our young men to be less masculine, to care less, to distract us. And the more you're distracted by this stuff, the less you care about the real things. I don't think we're here by mistake. The universe experiencing itself in this way, alive, conscious being. You can't play like you don't want to be there. You can't play like you ain't gonna win, because you're not gonna win. I'm never worried about losing, only when I know myself I could have done more. When you're depressed, you don't really know you're depressed. Sometimes people fall into the trap of feeling sorry for himself, and that becomes their identity. I care about you as a person rather than the skin you wear or the outfit or the whatever you are.
Before we jump into today's episode, I have a small favor to ask from you. If you've gotten any value from any of the podcasts, any of the content that I have put out, please hit the subscribe button. It honestly helps me so much. It helps this channel in growing. And as you've seen, as the channel grows, the guests get bigger and better, which means I can provide more knowledge and more value to you, the listener. Thank you, and enjoy today's episode. Paul Fleming, my man, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to jump on the Betar Project Podcast. Where I want to start this is, there's always a short and long answer to this question. And I honestly want to know, like, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Stressful. Life is stressful, man. 6 kids is stressful, and just trying to juggle life and everything is stressful. But yeah, no, I'm going good, man. Going good. And
the joys of parenthood, eh? Have 6 kids at party every night.
Oh, man, like, you know, everyone, like, when I talk to people that haven't got kids, I'm like, oh, you're going to have kids? And they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. And I'm like, man, you're never going to be ready. If you're waiting for the moment that you're going to be ready to be a parent, then you're going to be waiting your whole life. Because you're never ready, and every child poses a new set of things that you're going to have to deal with. Every personality is different, and I always tell people, my house, I'm a referee, I'm a counselor, I'm a disciplinary, I'm a judge, a jury, I'm a playmate, I'm everything.
You wear all the hats.
You wear all the hats, and every kid is different, and you gotta be a different. You have a different role with every kid, and every kid, reacts differently and wants different things, and there's different outcomes and different behaviors of all your kids. So yeah, it's a juggling act.
How old were you when you had your first one?
My daughter was born on my 24th birthday. We share a birthday, April 3rd. So, 24. My wife was 21. So, she was a difficult baby and an easy child. And now she's like 11. So she's getting to that real,
the joys.
Oh man, but boys, for me, I guess, like, because my house there's 5 males in the house. So our house is the 3 Fs, footy, fighting, and Fortnite. And it's just like chaos. It's actual chaos. And we're all testosterone driven boys and men, and, we're into everything, constantly watching fighting. And my 3-year-old, well, almost 3, he's into like WWE now. So he loves wrestling and constantly watching UFC and boxing knockouts and fighting and this and that. So it's very testosterone. So my boys were the real hard and are hard, but now my daughter's getting to that age where, yeah, everything, she's got her own views on everything already, and social media and the phones and all that stuff. That poses its own sort of issues.
Does it scare you a bit?
Yeah. It's hard to mitigate all them stuff. Like it's either you get rid of it all, or you got to run the risk of all the bullshit that comes with it. And it's it's difficult. It's difficult,
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
And you don't want to be that parent that bans everything and they're missing out on everything, but you also don't want to be that parent that turns a blind eye to everything. And so we just kind of be upfront, and sometimes the kids ask us some crazy questions and that, and it's coming from outside or something that they've seen and that, and you kind of just mitigate it and try and be open, but not. Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, man. It's difficult.
I feel as long as you have open communication and you instill the right values into your children, bro, like when stuff like that arises, they're going to know right from wrong, and hopefully they don't go down their stuff path.
Well, you just hope you got that open relationship where they come and talk to you about it and not do things secretly or, keep things from you and that. So that's what we try and do. My wife is she brings grounding to the house. Her energy is very calmative and very grounded and that. So she's a great mum. She's the best mum.
It's Bianca, is it?
Bianca, yeah. Mad cook too.
Oh, really?
Mad wog.
Oh,
mad, yeah.
What's her best meal?
Man, pastas, man. Like she cooks mad pastas, but she's in everything. Like she's good at she can cook everything, like Asian food as well, and which I love. That's probably my favorite. Thai is probably my favorite food, and Thai and Italian.
She must have to cook a lot of food for your family.
Dude, like, you know what? I'm just like, our grocery bills are like $700 a week. Like,
wow.
And my boys aren't even teenagers yet. Like, I'm worried when my boys, they're going to have to get part-time jobs just to feed us. Like, yeah, when they're teenagers, they're just going to be munching through our whole house. That's scary. My daughter's like a little pecker. Like she just pecks at stuff and just like grabs the food, quickly eats it and then scoots off. Like she's like a little mouse. But the boys just raiding the cupboards all the time. It's wild.
We'll come back to parenting a bit later on, but for you, and we spoke about this before, I didn't get you on to speak about boxing because I'm not really a big boxing fan. I wanted to get people on like yourself because I want to know who you are as a person, your story, your mindset, your journey, the adversities that you've overcome to be the man that sits here today. So for myself and for the listeners that may not really know who you are, what's some context to better understand the man that sits in front of us?
Well, I grew up in a small town. I grew up rurally, about half an hour out of the town, but the town's like tiny. So I grew up on 14 acres in like this, it was like a shack when we first were there. It was like made out of chopped down trees, and I've never had a window or a door on my house for the first like 16 years.
I seen the photo of that.
Yeah. So it was just like open and no glass windows, no doors. We had like this kind of like gate thing. It flooded like about 3 times a year there. And we did the house up, which meant we put like brick walls that were kind of like shoulder height around the house, and ladders like was the windows. And we had like these steel slats where when it flooded, we had these pieces of board, and we just slid it in the slats and then waterproof silicone around it. And we used to we never left the house in the flood. So we used to like silicone this board in and then sit there with floods with like nearly lapping the top, and the water would come up from the ground. So we used to have this submersible pump that used to run on fuel, and we used to sit in the water and pump the water out of the house. And like, Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot different to my upbringing.
I don't know many people that have an upbringing like that, but yeah, we used to, like, when the water was coming up, we used to scoot into town and get food for a week, and used to just sit through the floods, and it's like crocodile country out there, like in between Cairns and Townsville, a little town called Tully, crocodiles. And I used to, like, looking back on it, I used to swim in the floods, and like literally 2 k's down the road, there's like infested with crocodiles. And I used to swim in the floods, and there'd be like spiders like as big as your hand, like floating down the river and that, and like snakes, because when it floods, everything.
Yeah.
And like everything comes out, and yeah, it was just like, I can't believe I did that. Like swimming around this, and the flood water's like dirt, like you can't see nothing, and you can't see crocodiles anyway. And I used to just swim around in it with no care. And like looking back on that, they're like, what the hell? Like, but just no fear, like just no fear as a kid. Yeah, I never had a good home environment. My dad was like real abusive, like a lot of domestic violence. Not always physical, but not always physical. A lot of mental and financial, and like we were like, I remember when I was little, before I started going to school, there'd be like months where no one would come to a house or visit us, or like, so we were like segregated away out in the bush. No one would see us, and like, yeah, like no one would come. And
how many siblings do you have?
So I've got half brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So my dad had 2 daughters, and I've only met one of them, and he's seen them when they were babies, never met them.
Yeah, right.
And before he died. And then, so I've only met one of them.
So living with you though, in that period.
So yeah, so they're I have that. And then my mum has 2 I got an older brother and an older sister and I knew them, met them all through my life, but I only have one full sister. And I was like 9 when she was born.
Yeah.
She was born, she's like the high level disabilities. Like she's nonverbal. So they say she's got cerebral palsy and autism, but they just put her in that category. I don't think they really know what she's got, but she's never spoken. She wears adult nappies. Mum's her full-time carer and stuff. Like, yeah. So I was 9 when she was born. So she only walked when she was like 7 or 8. Like,
wow. So essentially was it just you by yourself?
So it was me for a long time. And then I always wanted a brother and a sister. And I think it was like kind of selfish in a way, but I'm like kind of wanted someone else to go through, like just to have someone to talk to about everything. Like, and then I had my little sister, but then my little sister couldn't talk or couldn't communicate. So, so yeah, it was me for the first 9 years, and then my sister come. And then, but then I moved away when I was like 16, moved away from home, left for boxing. And yeah, like not a real good home environment, like no one to ever really speak to or communicate with, like it was all just in my head. But like, it's weird, like I look back on my life, and I still have and had bad ADHD as a kid. I was not medicated, but they wanted to put me on medication, but Dad was against it. But yeah, like I got into sports, and that was like, the only time I ever felt like people really cared about me or ever seen me as anything, like I ever succeeded in anything, was when I was doing sport.
Is that why you pursued it?
I don't think I thought that much into it.
But subconsciously, like looking back on it, I'm like, oh, this is like, I'm good at this. I get gratification. Like I was real good at footy when I was little, playing rugby league, like just like fearless, like wild little kid. And then when I got like 12, 13, I started boxing, and then I got real good at boxing. And I think in a way, that was my love language. You ever heard of love language? So I guess that was my dad's love language, was like, he always taught me to be tough. Like
always taught me like to be tough, to be strong, to be a man. I guess it's his theory of what a man was. And I think it was just the perfect combination to be a fighter, really. I think to be a fighter, you have to be a little bit crazy. And yeah, Dad was just teaching me to be tough, to be resilient in the ways that he thought he could. And yeah, I was good at boxing, and then just pushed me into boxing and training all the time, and always at like we never had lots of money, but like everything went on in my boxing and get me to like, we lived 2 hours, 2.5 hours, half an hour away from the town. So an hour drive every day. And like the tournaments were over in Townsville or Cairns mostly. And that was like 2.5 hours or 2 and a bit hours. So we were constantly driving every Saturday, and I was there all the time. So yeah, guess he seen like promise in me in that area. So he pushed me into it heaps. So
Home life wasn't the best, but to see that he put in that effort for you to get to where you are now, like, you got to be super grateful for him.
Like I said, I guess that was his love language. You've seen that. Yeah. You know, you can look at the bad things, and I guess the bad things taught me what not to do. So I learned what I didn't like, and listen, like, you know, I think at times I'm tough on my kids, but I guess that's always in the back of my mind, is like, pulls me back a lot, because I never want to be, I can talk about my dad now, and I get no fear. Like, he passed away when I was like 21, and I get no feelings. Like, I don't get a feeling in my heart or my stomach when you've lost someone that you talk about, you know, that feeling.
Yep.
I talk about him now, and I don't get that. And I haven't cried ever since. And I never want that for my kids. So when I feel I'm being too much, or when my wife tells me that was too much, and that I get that feeling, and I get that scared feeling, like, oh, man, like, shit, I got to make it right, because I don't want to be that. I want them, and not that of fact of when I'm gone, I want them to be sad, but I just want them to have a feeling for me, you know, not a nothing feeling. If that makes sense.
You mentioned, we're speaking about, you don't have much feeling towards, like, when you speak about your dad now, is there a level of resent or anger towards him, or is it forgiveness, or what is it?
From what I've found out, Dad went through a lot of stuff, and so does my mum. My mum's gone through a lot of stuff too. And my mum grew up, she was 11 before they passed the referendum. You know, she's Aboriginal. My mum's Aboriginal Asian, and a little bit of white, a little bit of Viking in there. And my dad's Irish, English, and Scottish, predominantly Irish. He's like 60% Irish. And so Mum was 11 before they passed the referendum. So she remembers, like, when she had no rights, no, you know, she wasn't considered a human being. So my mum went through a lot of stuff, and so did my dad. Like, he was in like homes and stuff. And from what I understand, things happened in them homes to my dad. So I guess he never talked about it. He never shared it. He never got to, like, I wish I would have got the chance to talk to him, to be like, why? Like, get to the deeper issue, the deeper root of things, and talk to him about it. So there's I feel bad for him that he died with that on his conscience and inside of him. He never got to get that off his chest. He never got to work through it. And that makes me like I feel bad for him. Yeah. I feel bad for him in that way, that he just had them demons and they manifested in the way that they did. And, you know, that makes me sad. Yeah. And, you know, I never get to speak about it with him. Never get to, you know, help him. Never get to ask why. You know, why was he the way he was? Why was he like that? Why did he treat us like that? No, I feel bad about that. But in saying that, like, am I angry at it? No, because it taught me a lot of things. You know, it's sad that I was a little kid and going, but you know what? Like, ADHD, I think having that didn't allow me to dwell on it. I was so easily distracted that it was like, it was a moment and then it was gone. Like the things that was said, like my dad said a lot of bad things to me and a lot of like, I guess, racist things and a lot of hurtful things. But at an early age, I realized I'd rather him say them things than to bash me or flog me.
Yeah.
And then the floggings weren't like smacks. Like I used to get flogged. And as I got older, they got worse. And he used to bash me. And that's how I knew I could be a fighter, because he never knocked me out. And I knew I could take a shot. But it was also like real humiliating. Like he'd flog me in front of my friends, in front of parents, in front of people that were around. And like, dude, if it was nowadays, and like my dad was also like the assistant coach at the footy, he used to help out. He used to backhand me in the mouth in front of like kids and parents and stuff. And this is like in the early 90s, and it used to happen. And like if it happened now, like I would have been removed from my parents. Like it's just a different time. But like, yeah, the humiliating thing. I remember like one of my core memories is like ADHD. I was a naughty boy at school, naughty boy. And I remember getting, every time I got my report cards, I'd feel physically sick. Like I'd like have this like anxiety, fear, and I'd feel sick. And on the bus ride home, I was like, oh no, Dad's gonna like bash me when he reads my report card. The report card was easily distracted, disruptive, could learn more of it, and the talkative, everything that ADHD is. So it wasn't like he's easily distracted. He's got no attention. Yeah, that's what ADHD is, attention deficit. I'm at a deficit of attention. How can I have it when I don't have it? So it was just like the normal side effects of having ADHD, but I'd be punished for it. And not only punished at school, like this is before it was like a thing. Like now, my son, my 9-year-old son has bad ADHD. We just medicated him, and we were against it for so long till we watched this dude talking on Joe Rogan and about ADHD. And there's studies that have come out like if you medicate your children who have like legit ADHD, I think it's over prescribed and every kid has it now. Everyone's autistic. Everyone is on the spectrum, and everyone has ADHD. Especially boys. So if a kid has true ADHD and you medicate them as a child, they have like a 30-something% chance less. I don't know the exact percent. We wish we had a Jamie over there. Jamie, search that up. But a certain high percentage chance of not being addicted to illicit drugs as adults.
Yeah, okay.
There's a dude that was on Joe Rogan talking about it. And then when we seen that, we're like, whoa. And we were against medication. And then we've medicated him. He's been on it for like a week and a bit now. And the teachers, like, his teacher were like, and like, we've seen a significant difference. And and you know what, like, he's still himself at home because we stopped taking the nighttime meds because he wasn't sleeping. Because it's like amphetamines. It's like people take it in America as like drugs.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, we've seen a difference in him. So I wasn't medicated, like, and these side effects were like part of ADHD, but I'd be like punished for them. I spent most of my childhood sitting out on the stairs out in front of the classroom. I was illiterate till I was in my mid-20s. Couldn't read, couldn't write, couldn't spell. And now I'm not.
Speak pretty well now.
I'm not. Listen, I was always good at speaking, always good at people and interacting and stuff. But like, yeah, I just couldn't read, couldn't write, I'm still terrible at maths, but I don't think I'll ever be good at that. But that's what calculators are for, I guess.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'd feel physically sick because I knew I was going to get bashed and flogged by my dad when I got home.
I find medication an interesting topic to talk about. As I said, everyone has different views on it, right? And for me, I think there's a time and place for it. When it comes to kids, I'm not too sure. as you said, every kid's labeled and then they just straight away medication for every single kid.
Yeah.
But for example, ADHD, attention deficit disorder, you would know with your kids, but when one of your boys is doing something that he really enjoys, but how much is his attention on that? He doesn't get distracted because he's
100%.
He's doing something that he loves, he enjoys, he's passionate about.
Yep.
So then is ADHD actually a bad thing, or are we just putting our kids in the wrong environments?
We think that too. Like, me and my wife were against it. Like, he's been diagnosed since he was like 5 or 6. He's been going to speech and OT. Like, it was so evident that my boy had ADHD because our first 2 didn't. And then he was just like, he'd hurt himself and hurt others. He'd hurt himself and then just like that over it. He'd hurt others but not meaning to. He'd be climbing the walls, like wouldn't sleep, climbing the walls, just his eyes would roll around in his head. Like, you try and talk to him and he'd just be like,
oh, really?
Like intense. And people, when they meet him in that, they're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, you're getting the PG version too, because he has some sort of, because he's a real people person. He loves people. So his ADHD is like dialed down a bit when he's around people and that, right? But when he's at home and he's comfortable where he knows he's not going to affect his relationships with people, it's nuts, man. Like, holes in the walls, like punching on, like his language, it's like I'm on a job site in the city. Like, his language is like horrendous for like a 8-year-old, like bad. Like, he says things that adults wouldn't even say to people. Like, he's a nut, right? So we were like, yeah, all right. ADHD is a variation of normal. And I say this to a lot of people. I go, 200 years ago in a different situation, people with ADHD would be a wanted part of a tribe. Like, you're fearless, you're creative, you're energetic, you don't need to eat as much, you don't need to sleep as much. Like, you'd be like a person like, oh, this kid's got a gift, he's different. You know, people would see that, the shaman or something would see that, like, oh, this kid's different, he's different, he needs to go over here and he needs to go. But now we're living in this world, in this society where you sit down in a classroom for 6 hours a day. The way to learn is tailored to one style. You know, a teacher's got 20, 25 people in a classroom. They don't have a chance to tailor make a style of learning for every single person. So, and that's the thing I realized too. It wasn't the fact that I couldn't learn. It's like I couldn't learn I wasn't interested in what they were teaching, and I couldn't learn the way they were teaching me. So, yeah, I taught myself to read through smartphones and stuff and just Google, and having that at the touch of a button where I'll be like, oh, I wonder what, I'll Google that. And just being interested and making the effort to learn. Yeah. And then having that spell predict, man, like, you know, yourself, when you're writing something, you don't spell it properly, it won't register, it won't suggest the word that you want to spell out. So you'd have to delete and it'll be like sounded out different. And then when that's how you spell it. All right, I'll press that. And after doing that, I knew how to spell it because I knew it was that letter, not that letter.
Have you thought about homeschooling? I know there's 6 of them, but
you know what? If we didn't have 6 and needed a break, then maybe. But the schools are really good now. Like, the teachers are real. Like, his teacher, when we picked him up from school, was like waiting out there to come tell us stuff, like, hey, I've got something to tell you and ask you. Like, they're real easy to interact with. They got apps where you can be like, hey, come and this, that. So yeah, we've like, if we weren't going crazy as it is, then maybe, but you know what? Like, I hated school. He loves school. So that's half the battle won there, is that the fact that he loves school. And, we're trialing the medication, And he seems to be like, he wants to take it. He's into, like, he's even said, like, so one of the things that the teacher said to him, and he even said to the teacher the other day, so when you misbehave, you move your name to like warning and then time out, and then you keep being naughty. It's like you go to another classroom and then you got detention, right? So you move your name, you get all these chances. The teacher goes, and he even went up to the teacher, goes, "Oh, miss, you haven't moved my name for 2 days now." And that's the first time this year he hasn't had his name moved for 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
On this medication. And he wrote like a full page of writing, first time, like a page and a half, first time this year. He's done that. And he could actually read it back. Like, he wasn't just scribbling, he could read it back to the teacher. First time this year on meds. So, he doesn't take him on weekends. So we let him off it on the weekends, and only takes it when he's going to school during the day. So,
yeah, I think as a parent, you just got to do what you feel is best and do the best with the tools that you have.
What works for you, man? What works for you? And listen, we're not locked into it. It's not like we're trialing this medication. It's like, that's it. He's on the medication for the rest of his life. Like, we're seeing how it is. We're seeing how he is on it, seeing how he likes it. And if it's not working, or if we feel like whatever, we just take him off it and he'll go back to the same as he was.
Yeah.
So anything's worth a try. It's whatever works, and it's an option, and we're trying it and see how it goes.
Definitely agree. Something that I wanted to come back to, you speaking about your father, like hard, toughen up, doesn't speak about his feelings. That was his view of masculinity. And I guess that generation, that's what the view was on what it was to be a man. I wanted to ask you, like, what's your viewpoint on masculinity, and what does a man look like to you?
A man, to me, is a provider, a protector, a teacher, and someone like, I couldn't go to my dad and ask him certain things, and I try and be that, try and be open and be that person that they feel safe to come talk to about anything, and like talk about the things that you never were talked about, like sexuality.
Yeah.
Like that's a thing that I've talked to my boys about, like, and how to, like, I never had a good teacher on how to treat a woman, and the values of treating a woman, and how we protect and how we look after them and how you respect them and stuff. I never had that, so I had to learn that myself. And, dating when I was young, I probably made lots of mistakes. And even with my wife now, like, we've been together for like 14 years. And at the start, I made a lot of mistakes, and it's just trial and error, and getting better at being a man. Yeah, I don't think there's such thing as toxic masculinity. I've watched a lot of that Jordan Peterson and all them sort of things, and I don't watch the whole podcast, but when they're clips and like scrolling through Instagram, I love Instagram. Follow a lot of pages, a lot of conspiracy pages, and a lot of like fight pages and all that stuff, and that stuff, the algorithm, the more you watch that stuff, the more the Andrew Tates and all that stuff come up. And I've watched a few of the clips in that, and even my wife sends me clips. She's been sending me clips of Andrew Tate recently, like some of the things that he said. I know he's a lot controversial, and I know Jordan Peterson is, and all that stuff, and a few of the other guys, but I just feel like the toxic masculinity, I don't think that's a thing. I think, like I heard on one of the podcasts, you're either a toxic person who's a man, who's masculine. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. It's just a toxic person.
Traits. Toxic
traits of a toxic person. But masculinity in itself is not a toxic thing. It's just a person.
I feel like it's not toxic masculinity, it's the lack of masculinity.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing too, and I think that's a thing. It's bad to be that sort of thing now, and, it's bad to be, strong and voice your opinion, like voicing your opinions now You get hung out, man.
It's like, where's free speech?
You get hung out, man. You can't have a differing opinion on, especially the sexuality thing. And, like for me, whatever is whatever. Like, I don't really care. Like, whatever you want to categorize yourself as, that's for you. Like, I don't care. But just because I may not agree with it and have different viewpoints doesn't make me a homophobe or transphobic or whatever it is. Like, I'll treat everyone with the same respect. Like,
just don't push it onto other people.
Don't, especially my kids, man. Like, I think that's something that I should teach.
Yeah.
That's something that I should teach my kids. But like, I don't care. Like, I've got friends that are gay and lesbian, like whatever. Like, I don't have any trans friends, but like whatever. Like, but I don't think that defines you as well. Like, you notice now, like, that is defining the person. Like, I'm trans. Like, that is the person that they are. Like, that's their identity.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what you are or what you, like, that's not what I care about. I care about whether you're a good person. I care whether I can communicate with you. I care about you as a person rather than the skin you wear or the outfit or the whatever you are or the makeup. I don't care. Like, what are your values? What do you care about? What are your views? What do you love? What are your loves and hates? What do you like? Like, that's what I care about more than your sexuality or your what you choose to be that day or not be. Like, that's not a main concern of mine. Like, that's not how I judge or view a person. Like, that's down the bottom here. I care about the person you are more than the person that, that side of things,
It's like they wear it as a badge of honor, but I don't know why. Like, as you said, the most important thing is, are you a good human being and what are your values?
I don't care who you choose to sleep with.
Yeah.
Like, or who you choose to kiss or take home or have a relationship with. Like, that's not my, like, when I meet you, I'm not like, what are you into? What is your sexual preference? Like, I'm like, oh, we always talk about general things rather than that. Like, that's not a concern of mine. That's not like, I need to know that to know whether I like this person. Like, I don't care, what brands, what are you wearing? Like, what skin do you have on today? Like, that's not my concern. So,
yeah, that's why I love podcasting. I get to know the actual person. Like, I don't care your sexuality, anything like that. I want to know who you are, what you value.
For sure. And I think that's a big part. It seems like it's a big agenda at the moment, like sexuality and like this, like.
This could be a conspiracy, Brad. Do you feel like they're pushing it onto kids, man? Especially the whole trend. Did you see that book that they...
Listen, we talk about the masculinity thing. Yeah. And I guess the less masculine you are and the more you're distracted by this stuff, the less you care about the real things that are really affecting us.
More controllable.
The more control, because we're too busy fighting about gender fluidity and what a gender is and men and women, what has been the same thing since the dawning of time. We're more concerned about arguing about that than the real things that are going on, the real concerning things. That's, and they try and make the less masculine, and the less you care and the less you're willing to stand up, the more easy you are to be led and told what to do. And I feel they're trying to breed it out of our young men to be less masculine, to care less about, to distract us with stuff that doesn't really matter.
Yeah. That's why it's our role as parents to fucking raise our kids in the household, not let society raise our kids, because that's when the narratives and everything get pushed on them. And it's like,
and it's like, again, like I was saying, it's hard to, like, that stuff's everywhere, man.
Yeah.
You can't, it's everywhere now. And the older you get, the more the kids are going to be exposed to it. And it's like I've told my kids what our beliefs are and our beliefs are. I mean, I said, but people can choose to believe, and especially about religion. Like, I'm not religious, but I'm agnostic, right? Whether you want to, that's the word that they give it, right? Agnostic. Like, I believe that there's something, but I don't know what that is. I'm not sure. And listen, I'm open to things. I might be 5 years down the track, I might be a Hindu. Like, I might be a Buddhist. I might be Muslim. I don't know what, like, nothing's jumped out and grabbed me yet to pull me in one way or the other. But I believe that there's some sort of force, some sort of something, divine interaction, or some sort of something, some sort of energy, some sort of something.
Yeah,
I don't think we're here by mistake.
No,
like,
definitely not.
You know, it's even like quantum physicists and mathematicians that are doing these things now. It's like they're saying that there's multiple dimensions and multiple that were laid on top of each other. So there's probably different versions of you. Like, that's like, it's so hard to wrap your head around, but like, yeah, it's very interesting. So.
At the end of the day, well, I believe we're all energy, we're all vibration. We're not just this meat sack that we're in, bro.
I think this is just the skin that the avatar that we have while we're here in this. I believe that the earth is a conscious being, right? And the universe, I believe, this is what I've, from watching and experiences that I've had, this is my viewpoint at the moment. I believe that consciousness reality is consciousness, right? And the universe is the earth is a conscious being. It's alive. Obviously, the earth is alive. And where the earth experiencing its consciousness, like where the universe has created the earth is alive, and where the universe and the world experiencing itself through consciousness, and we're just conscious beings. And everything's alive. Everything, there's all forces, like the universe is alive, and we're just the universe experiencing itself in this way, alive, conscious being.
What does Indigenous culture say about the world and the earth? Like, is there a religion or what?
Yeah, I guess you could say the dream time is like, it's like a dimension, a realm. This is how I listen. So if I speak about Aboriginal stuff, this is just, I'm not speaking for the whole of everything, because every Aboriginal person, Indigenous person, all right, if you superimpose Australia over Europe, it covers 20, 30 countries. So you got to look at Aboriginal culture as every tribe, place is its own country.
Yeah, and has the dialects and everything, eh?
There's over 1,000 tribes speaking 700 like dialects, and like, it's crazy, right? So different Aboriginal people have different beliefs and different belief systems in that. But we believe that the earth is alive, and there's a dreaming, this place that always will be before this was here. There's that place, kind of like a continuous realm that's there. And when we die, we go back there. We believe in reincarnation.
Tell you what comes to my mind, Avatar.
Yeah.
Like the one world, but the different worlds within it, like the different countries, the way they live, the way they look, everything like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Very similar. And how the connection to the animals and everything's alive.
To Mother Nature, yeah.
Everything's alive. In our culture, everything is alive. And when we die, we can become trees. We get recycled back into the earth, and we become everything. And that's why, like, certain totems represent certain people, and certain tribes don't eat that. They can't eat it because it could be them. But other tribes become water, become the earth, become the air that we breathe. So yeah, we're recycled back into the earth, and we become everything. So that's what I have gathered from the stuff that I've learned.
What made you want to dive? Like you mentioned, growing up, you weren't so much involved in Indigenous culture. What made you want to dive into it now and embrace it, really?
So I always knew I was Aboriginal. I always knew that, and it's weird. I grew up in, like, there's a lot of Aboriginal people where I'm from in Tully, like Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders is like everywhere there. And I grew up knowing about it, but never really celebrating and never really doing much about it. And yeah, it wasn't until I had my kids and I knew they will have answers that I couldn't answer. And, you know, a good friend of mine, Joe Williams, he's an Indigenous man, and he's used to play for Rabbitohs.
Yeah.
And a real close friend. He's one of the only people that I'll call, or even my wife calls if she feels I'm going through something. Or put it this way, if the phone rings and he's calling, I'll always answer. And he's a person I'll go to talk to about a lot of things. He kind of told me, pushed me into it, like gently nudged me into it. And, you know, there was a corroboree, a get together with some people that he wasn't actually there. He was away. He goes, I'm away, but go down to the Central Coast and they're doing this yearly corroboree. Go down and watch it. You'll love it. And I went down and watched it and I was like, holy, it was like a light bulb moment for me. And then, you know, I got heaps into it. I was going out. We'd like every Thursday, me and a group of fellas from out this way would go out bush and have like a meet-in thing. And, you know, I danced a lot, did a few Yarbin festival, did a few festivals and stuff. And yeah, and then got into it a lot. And, you know, the rest is history. And then doing my own research and talking to a lot of people, made a lot of connections with a lot of people, and I speak to them and yeah, it's a cool journey, man. It's a cool journey, like finding out, you know, the rich history and connecting, and yeah, it's been awesome.
Why do you feel the youth or the Indigenous community are so disconnected with culture and history? Because I've had Joe on the podcast before, and
oh, you had Joe?
Yeah, I've had him on.
Oh, I did. Yeah, shout out to Joe.
The way he described it was, as an Indigenous person, you're walking in two worlds.
Yeah.
You're the Indigenous Dreamtime, that cultural world, and then Western society.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you balance both? And it's kind of, the Indigenous way of life has been pushed away.
Yeah. It's about reconnecting. Like you said, you're walking in two worlds, and a lot of it has been like taken, lost, hidden. Like a lot of our parents that were Indigenous had to hide being Aboriginal from fears that their kids were going to get taken. A lot of grandparents and, you know, stolen generation, and there's been a lot of stigmas around it. But man, since the time I've been around, the push of it has just been crazy. Like there was no Indigenous round, there was no Indigenous jerseys, there was no Aboriginal education officers at school and Indigenous days and NAIDOC weeks. Like it's come a long way, and it's, you know, it's slowly, and you know, we got this yes vote thing that's, you know, coming up soon. And, you know, that's been a bit, have you seen a lot of the yes vote stuff?
Signs, I didn't know what it was.
It's been a weird one, eh? It's like I found a lot of people on either side of it, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it as well.
It's a pink sign. I'm like, is this for LGBT? Like, I didn't know what it was.
Dude, it's like, I've seen a lot, like, I guess because I'm on that algorithm, being Indigenous and that, and it's everywhere at the moment, man, and trying to wrap my head around it. And yeah, it's an interesting one, and I don't know enough. And Joe's one of the guys that I'm talking to a lot about it, and I don't know enough about it to even, like, I don't even want to try to talk about it on here. All I say is do yourself a favor and go look it up and search it up, and both sides of the yes and no, because I know a lot of strong Indigenous leaders that are saying no, and I know a lot of strong Indigenous leaders that are saying yes about it, like they want it. And I guess just look into it and formulate your own opinions on it. I'm not even going to, like I said, I'm not going to even try and touch on it.
The best way to argue a point is to understand both sides.
Exactly. It's too complex for me to argue the point, so I'm just going to stick away from it. But yeah, it's like, you know, we got that yes vote going on and the push and in the right directions, and you know, a lot of the schools, like, you know, I get invited into schools, and I'm actually at Cranebrook. I'm going to start a program at Cranebrook, 8-week program doing it. And I just went to Northern Territory. I was over there for like 5 days, and I'm going back in September working in a remote community. And when I say remote community, I mean remote communities. Yeah. Like, I'm Indigenous, I'm Aboriginal, And I went there and I was like, holy, it's like, it's a different world.
Like living off the land, or
It's just different.
Yeah.
You go out there and it's different. Like, for instance, one of the biggest things that's like really kind of stood out for me is like, there's two things, right? They speak pidgin English. They speak broken English. Like, if you speak too fast, they won't understand it. Like little kids.
Yeah.
And even they speak broken English. Like, you know, when you watch UNICEF videos where the African kids are like speaking, but they're speaking like that. Like, these kids learn multiple dialects of Aboriginal language, like 2 to 3, sometimes 3, but definitely 1 to 2 before they learn English. And then they speak predominantly Aboriginal language at home with their parents and that. They only speak English when they learn it from songs, movies, TVs, and at school. But predominantly from when they're little till they start school, they speak Aboriginal language.
Can you speak it?
Nah, not at all. And a lot of people, the only places that really do are like rural, like remote communities.
Yeah.
People are learning now. Like, and again, a lot of the languages were lost, man. Like, one of my tribes, the language was lost up in far enough Queensland. There's no record of it. And remember, our languages we had no written language. We had no written language.
So it's just passed down.
So it's passed down verbally through song, dance, and speak, and people that know it. So if you disconnect people from their culture, and then on top of that, we weren't allowed to speak it back then around in the cities and that. So my mum grew up not being able to speak it, not being able to learn about it, not being able to dance and do the traditional things. So you cut it off. Whereas out there in remote communities, they still have traditional ways. They still go through ceremonies and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Like, they still have traditional ceremonies, like full on ones, like some like I don't even know, and I can't even speak about. But a lot of like, a lot of it you can't, like, I can't even speak about, and I wouldn't even try to because I don't know enough about it. But a lot of people that I know that have been through these, you can't even talk to them about it. You're not even allowed to speak about it.
Yeah, wow.
It's full on.
It's interesting how rich and diverse the culture, well, the many cultures within the big culture is.
Like, people think Aboriginal people's one shoe fits all. We had Central Desert Aboriginal people that was 6 foot tall, that looked like Zulus, like long plaited hair, like that was 6 foot something tall. We had pygmy Aboriginal people from up near Cairns in the hinterlands. We had Aboriginal people, and think about the different foods and the different diets they would have had. The coastal Aboriginal people that had seafoods and all that sort of stuff. The inland ones, they've never even seen, like, they only eat kangaroo and that, and they're a lot skinnier and real thin and skinny. And like, imagine the workout it was to have to get that food too, like hunting. Like, have you look at old pictures of there wasn't a fat Aboriginal person.
No.
They were just like sinew and muscle and like ripped and that. It's crazy. Like, so yeah, we had different Aboriginal people, different diets, different belief systems, different languages. It's like different countries. So
do you ever sit there and just, because I'm thinking about it right now, to go back in time and then go to all the different countries within Australia? Like,
there's a few, if only you could have a time machine. There's a few different times I'd go to, you know. I'd love to see how the pyramids were made. If I die before I find out that, I'm going to be...
All right, who do you believe built the pyramids?
I don't know, man.
Aliens or what?
There's so many different theories of it, man. And that's something I'm really into, like, and we were speaking about it a little bit before. I love that conspiracies and like lost cultures and technologies and all this sort of stuff. And the pyramids is one of them big ones, man. Like, how did they cut them stones? How did they lay them so precisely and transport them, cut them, transport them, lift them, move them? No one knows.
Because I heard some of the stones were from thousands of miles away. Like
how
did they get there?
Aswan and Egypt, and like how did they ship them? And there's something like they did the maths. they had to cut, transport, and lay a stone every 5 minutes for 25 years to complete the pyramid in that time frame.
It makes no sense. Huh?
It makes no sense. And how precise they were. Like, how do you cut the stone? You can't even fit a razor blade between them. Like, they're cut to fit so specifically. And have you seen in like Peru, South America, how they individually cut stones to fit into each other on weird angles? Yeah. Like there's a certain word that they got for these, and like the stones are cut specifically in odd angles to like slot into each other, and they don't know how they did it because it's not like they cut every stone a square, and they cut on like weird angles and they slot in, and the next one's cut on a weird angle to slot into that one, like weird pentagram-y sort of weird. Yeah, it's strange. It's strange.
There's this Netflix series I'm going to start watching called
Ancient Apocalypse. Yeah, I've watched it. I've watched it. Yeah, it's good. Good. That Graham Hancock. Yeah. I watched him a lot on Joe Rogan. I love Joe Rogan. I've watched a lot of
conspiracy.
Yeah, it is, you know, and how they reckon. And I think that's a thing too. I think a lot of the stuff, it's a lot of theories. Like, they don't really know how old things are and how they were done. They just, like, they carbon date, but you can't carbon date stone. You carbon date the things between it and like the moss and all the stuff in between it, but you can't actually carbon date it. So there's theories that the pyramids were older, a lot older. I think the time frames are off. I think we've been here for a lot longer. Have you heard of that Younger Dryas theory? No. Dude, how like 11,000 years ago we were hit with a series of comets and it reset everything, and that's why we can't figure out, like, we've lost a lot of the technologies and all of these things. It got reset, like we were wiped out by like these series of comets that hit the earth, and then the flood was this flood from the waves. Like, yeah, it's like
how far deep do you want to go into it?
Dude, like I love that sort of stuff. And listen, it's not like I believe it as gospel, like I'm like, this is exactly, but I like being open. So I love these conspiracies in these other ways of thinking and these other avenues, and it keeps your mind open to things, you know, like, and I like that. I got open mind tattooed on the back of my head. So I try to live by that. Like, I'm open minded to this sort of stuff, and, you know, these sort of different planes of thinking, different avenues of thinking. I'm not set into one view.
It's funny how open minded equals crazy in this day and age.
Yeah, it is.
It's like there's so much of the population that's closed minded. It's like, imagine if you just open that a little bit, your eyes would open and you'd be like, fuck, whatever happening in the world may not exactly be the truth. You need to look at other avenues.
I think a lot more people are waking up to it. And a lot of I'm not going to say the words, but a lot of the things that happened over the last couple of years,
which people would know by just mentioning that.
A lot of the things that happened over the past couple of years, and a lot of things that people are forced into for no reason. And now now it's not even.
And you see the death rates from that thing that people were forced to.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy, man. And I think a lot of people were. I didn't think in my lifetime that we'd be forced into certain things, that we were like not being able to go here and not like on a
5 kilometer radius or something like that.
And like curfews.
Yeah.
I felt like it was like, I don't know about everyone else, but I felt like it was like, I felt like I was in a movie. It almost felt like it wasn't real. Like, it felt like a plot of a movie. And I didn't feel like I was living reality. And then I was frustrated how people couldn't see outside of that box. And there were a lot of people that I had like verbal punch-ons over it.
Close people to you as well?
Yeah, close people to me. And then now it's just,
It's not even really spoken of, eh?
you don't even have to isolate when you have that anymore.
Yeah.
Like you could just
I
like,
just come back from overseas and it's like nothing happened.
dude, I went over to Dubai. You didn't have to air. You could go anywhere. You go anywhere now. You go anywhere now. It's weird. It's weird. That is a weird point in time. That is a strange point in time. But I think too, it may be a shift in a way is like people may open up a little bit to the fact that there is other agendas.
Yeah.
It's not just plain cut how they tell us it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? What else now?
Yeah.
What else is not how they tell? For instance, right? And I love this subject. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. If you ever said anything about UFOs, UAPs, people probably got put in insane asylums, lost family members, crazy over things that they said that they seen in the sky or hear this, blah, blah, blah. Thought they were crazy. Probably went mental. And now they're coming out and going, oh, yeah, no. Oh, that's been happening forever. We got footage of them. We got videos and stuff. And then the stuff that we're seeing now is only stuff that's been leaked. Yeah. It's not the actual stuff that they have. And then the government's just going, like, especially the American government's going, oh, yeah, we can't explain that. It's like, what else have you got hidden away?
Yeah, there's a lot of hidden shit.
Dude. And that's even like, I think about us. Like, I think that human beings can do certain things, but it's been hidden and it's been woozy-wazied away. Like, oh, that's a woozy-wazy. That's not real.
Yeah.
Like astro projection. Like there's like where you can leave your body and remote. Have you ever heard of remote viewing? The CIA have documents on remote viewing where you can people can see things like telepathy and all that stuff. Like what's that series that everyone's Stranger Things?
Yeah, okay.
That's based on this thing called the Montauk Project too. Let's look into that. It's crazy how they took people that had these sort of gifts and then they dosed them up on psychedelics and stuff and tried to enhance their abilities and stuff like that. It's crazy. Dude, and I'm not saying that it's 100% true and 100% believe it in that, but there's stuff out there, man.
Do your own research.
Do your own research and look into it. And you know what? Just how they have kept UAPs and stuff from us, this stuff is going to leak out, I reckon. Because look, 30 years ago, you were a kook. What are we going to know in 30 years' time? What are we going to know in 30 more years' time that, like I always say, imagine back in the medieval times if they were like, oh, we can cut a heart out and put someone else's heart in your body. Witchcraft.
Yeah. You
get burned at the stake for that. Like the things that are science now, 100 years ago, you were you'd a witch, you get burnt.
Yep.
But now science, it's crazy, man. It's crazy how far, how much further are we going to be? And then you got this AI sort of thing. What about all the AI? That stuff's creepy, man. That stuff's creepy. It's like I always post, haven't you guys watched Terminator and Terminator 2? They've been warning us. John Connor, they were warning us about this stuff. It's freaky, man. But where are we going with it? Are we making our humanity obsolete? We're making ourselves obsolete. The jobs are going to be all AI. You're not going to even be able to think. You're going to be able to write a whole chat GPT. You can type in what you want. They can art. Look at art now.
Yeah.
Look at you can write a whole movie. You can write scripts and do this, that. So where are we going with it?
I think it's a great tool in depending on how you use it, but it's taking away from humans actually thinking for themselves a lot of the time.
There's a lot of people that are worried about it too.
Yeah. Because how smart can it get? That's the thing.
Well, it's got like the more you interact with it, the more it learns.
It's like every day it's taking in data and it's adding it to its fucking.
I watched this thing about. I forgot what it was called, but I watched this thing about chess playing robots and stuff. Like back when human beings could beat robots in chess, right? And it was about the development of that and this supercomputer. Now we can't even compete. Like computers are like within 3 or 4 moves, it's already done everything and it's got access to every game ever played, blah, blah, blah. We can't even compete. Yeah. But it was the process of that coming up to there and how it was just interesting. And I remember watching it and I was like, if I just waste my time watching this, because I didn't really understand it until the end. And it was just showing the process of it and how once this AI, this programming, we could still beat it, but now it's not even comparable. So computers are so far ahead of us. And I think about this conspiracy too, like, what if AI or what if these computers are feeding us all this information now and they're already so far ahead of us that we can't even fathom it. And they're already feeding us this stuff and programming us, pushing us into these. So imagine if we talk about the transgender thing. Imagine if that is all the AI pushing us in to distract us with that. Well, it gains momentum until it's so far ahead of us that it's inconceivable. Like when the internet started, we couldn't conceive where it would be. And now it's like, we can't live without computers and internet. Everything's run by that. What if they're already game, set, match so far ahead of us that we haven't even caught a whiff of where they are. We can't even prepare ourselves for the battle or whatever it is. We're not even there. That's the thing I think about sometimes. Like, wow.
Everything that we're trying to, all this conspiracy stuff. Do you feel like it's impacting the mental health of human beings?
100%.
Like,
it's obvious.
There's so much stimulation going on. We need our iPhones. We need our laptops. Like, we can't think for ourselves. We're always plugging shit in here, which, if we're talking on a conspiracy level, that's programming us to believe in certain narratives and stuff. How fucked is that going to be for our mental health? Like, it's already...
What about kids?
Yeah.
So I grew up where there was, and so I'm like, how old are you?
26.
So I guess I'm one of the last generations that grew up as a kid without internet in the home and phones and all that stuff. Like, I was a teenager when phones, like proper phones, like
the Nokia bricks.
Yeah, I grew up like when the first color phones come in and all that stuff. So I was like a teenager. So like, I grew up where you'd watch a tape and you'd have to rewind it, and where Blockbuster, that was the highlight of our like going to Blockbuster and getting a movie out and looking through the aisles and stuff like that. Like, that was awesome. Like, but now kids have everything at the touch of a button. Anything that you want to watch on YouTube, it's there. You got everything all the time, all at once. That movie, everything all the time, all at once. You got everything. Any video game, any TV show, any program, anything. So like, is that taking away our imagination? Is it taking away our ability to think for ourselves?
Instant gratification's a big one too.
And then is that programming us where we need everything at that moment? There's no working towards it, and
any sort of adversity we hit with, these kids can't deal with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess like, that's why sport's good. That's why I think sports teaches you to lose. But they're even trying to take away like that losing thing.
I've seen that in the junior rugby league.
Like there's no ladder. Yeah. They don't start competing until they're like 10 or something.
That's a joke.
So there's no ladder. There's no grand finals. Like my 8-year-old, there's no grand finals, there's no semi-final. So my 10-year-old, he got the semis and finals and all that stuff. And they cry, and they, like, when they lose and they lost the semis, and they were crying and they were like blaming everyone else. But isn't that part of it? Isn't that part of life?
Yeah.
Like being upset, losing, getting hurt, learning from it, striving. Like, if there's no one's winning, then what's the chance of doing it? What's the use of doing it? Like, you got to have a winner, because there's a winner in life and there's losers. There's people that lose, not losers, but there's people that lose. There's people that are going to win. Are we like, are our kids going to be able to handle that? Are we taking it away from them? Like, what? I'm like, and it's your parents' job to pick up the pieces, to teach them that they're going to have to pick up the pieces and be that person to come to and cry to. You know what I mean? And then my son lost his semi-finals, and mum's the lover, and I'm the hard love sort of thing. And they played their semis and they lost, and then I talked to him and I was like, "Why do you think you lost?" "Well, I don't know, the ref." I'm like, "Well, can I say what I feel?" I go, "You's played like you's already losing. You's played like you weren't going to win." "Oh, but we did. But see what happened?" I'm like, "Yeah, but you already defeated going out there. You played like you played like you didn't want to be there. And they played like they wanted to win. And that's why they won."
Mm-hmm.
And that was my tough love. Like, you can't play like you don't want to be there. You can't play like you ain't going to win, because you're not going to win. And yeah, sometimes you ain't going to win even when you play like that, but at least you know you're giving it everything. But mum's the good, mum's the, I'll play bad cop, she'll play good cop. So
how do you handle loss, especially like your boxing career? You've had, I think it was only one loss, but still, how did you?
So I lost heaps in the amateurs.
Yeah.
Like, not heaps, but I lost a bit in there. I lost at the Olympics, you know, and I lost at the World Juniors, and I lost like Luke Jackson, who's on your podcast. We fought 4 times. He beat me the first 3 times, and then I beat him to qualify for the 2008 Olympics after he beat me 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So that's overcoming adversity. And me and Jacko are close mates. I still talk to him. I went and watched his last fight. Like, I went down. That was specifically one of the main reasons I went down and to that fight night. And we're close mates. And he pushed me to be better, and I pushed him to be better, because he knew if he didn't show up that I was going to beat him, because we were in close fights all the time, and he knew that. And that what's the word, when competition, that competition breeds success. And I knew that if I wasn't going to show up, he was going to beat me, and I had something to strive for. Strive to be better. And I'm not worried about losing. I'm never worried about losing, only when I know myself I could have done more. That's the thing that eats me up. Like, shit, I could have done more, or I could have trained harder, or I could have done my weight better, or, you know. But then I tell people, like, a loss is only a loss when you when you don't learn anything from it. A loss is a chance to be better, and it's a learning opportunity, education. You can educate yourself. You can learn what you can do better. You know, when you win, you take that. That's the emotion is, you know, I won. Yeah, that's the biggest emotion, is like that winning emotion. So, yeah, I think that loss, that makes you hungry and makes you push to be better.
Talk to me about that period within your career where you had 2 years off. Was that was related to mental health, like poor mental health or depression?
Yeah, I think it was everything.
Yeah.
I think it was everything. You know, I wasn't active with boxing. I wasn't really doing much. And, you know, my wife went to work, and I was at home with the kids most of the time. And, you know, I wasn't really doing much. And I think it just all compacted into one. Yeah. And turned into a bit of mental health. And I never really had mental health before I was like 30. And then yeah, I guess when you're depressed, you don't really know you're depressed. Well, for me, I didn't really know. I couldn't see anything other than, like, I was just consumed by them feelings of like just down, and just couldn't see a way out of it. And yeah, like that, I guess that was mental health and the struggle. But I don't like defining myself through it. Like I think a lot of people use it as a crutch, and it gives them a group to be part of.
It's like a pity party.
It's like, yeah. And I speak to my mate, a real good mate of mine. He's an ex-veteran. He fought in Afghanistan, and he talks about his PTSD, and he goes, like he has it. He 100% has it. But he goes, a lot of the guys I know and that are going through it, like they gives them a group to belong to, and that. And he goes, I never wanted to be that, that person, to be like, oh, that pity party sort of thing, and that's not taken away from people's struggles and people finding, solitude in someone else and their own experiences. And like, I'm not having a go at that at all. And whatever helps get you through that time is, you just want to get out of it.
I think speak about it, but don't use it as an excuse.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people fall into the trap of feeling sorry for himself, and that becomes their identity. Yeah. And I didn't reach out to anyone, and I guess I don't really. And my wife talks about it, and she goes, "Why didn't you, talk to me?" And I'm like, I don't have the tools to do it because I've never had it.
You weren't taught.
I weren't taught it, and I don't know how. I don't even know how to start the conversation. And if someone else comes talk to me about it, dude, I'm all ears. But in myself, I think sometimes too, it's like maybe for my dad, I don't want to seem weak. And as me, like a lot of people see me as a leader and a person to go to and talk to, so I don't want to. But afterwards, I can talk about it. But going through that was hard. And I watched a lot of, like I said, I've watched a lot of Joe Rogan, and I've seen a lot of the stuff he talked about. Psychedelics can help with that, and that's when I kind of started my journey with that. That was interesting, started my journey with psychedelics and mushrooms and DMT. I've talked a little bit about it, but at the moment I don't do anything. I don't touch anything, and I think and I don't see myself. I'm still integrating the stuff that I've experienced with using that, and I don't drink, don't touch anything, and I've even got a prescription for medicinal marijuana for my ADHD and depression and all that stuff. And at the moment, like, I'm not even smoking. I haven't smoked and haven't touched anything. I'm not touching anything, and I'm just enjoying life and enjoying being present.
Yeah.
And not touching anything. And I'm not condoning it. Like, not, I've spoke to some people about it, and I'm not condoning the use of drugs or anything like that. But, it helped me for that period. It helped me for that period of time to do inward, kind of looking inward, and distraction, I think, as well. And, that's the reason, like, I was a heavy cannabis, that sounds so professional. I was a heavy smoker there for a fair few years, and prescribed medicinal marijuana. And there would come a point where, so I was smoking it to help with my mental health and to help feel something else. And then I was smoking it for a normality, to feel normal, to feel like it was a normal day.
Became like a habit.
Yeah, it became like a habit, became like, oh, I need to have a smoke. And it become like I need to have a smoke to do everything.
Like addiction kind of thing, in a way.
I don't think weed's addictive, the actual drug, but the feeling of being... It becomes like a normality. Like, I felt like I wasn't normal. And then I think it clouds things, like, oh, you get that perception of like, oh, it's not heroin, it's not opioids, it's not ice, it's not addictive drugs. So I'm not, but it's definitely a crutch, man. It's definitely it becomes almost becomes you can't do anything. I was so tuned into it that I would literally wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning to smoke.
Really?
I'd wake up, boom, going down to the garage and have a smoke. I'd go down, have a smoke, be high, have a sleep. Then the kids would get up and I'd be awake. And it was I was smoking heavily. And I guess with the ADHD too, I was functioning. It doesn't affect, like Ritalin. If a normal person takes the amphetamine, that's what Ritalin is, amphetamines, it affects them different than my son and myself. If I take Ritalin, and that affects us differently. And with the marijuana, with the cannabis, it didn't make me a couch potato. I was functioning. I could do everything. I could do and I think that too in my head, I'm oh, I'm not a stoner sitting on the couch smoking, eating. You do they portray it in movies. You sit around and I was doing everything, cooking, cleaning, the part of life, doing it out and about, smoking. I was even smoke it before training, smoke it after training, before fight. It just affects me differently than I guess it does other people. But I'm glad that I'm not smoking now. I've been almost a year now. I've been off it and feeling good. Feeling like I don't need to. And that's a good thing. I feel like I don't need to. I don't feel like it's a part I'll be out at a family event or out shopping or, oh man, I need to have a smoke to go shopping, to go to the shops. Oh, I'm going here. And then when you're not high, and this is the crazy thing, people think when you smoke, you're high for forever.
Yeah.
For a whole, it wears off and you're normal. When it's gone, it's gone. You're back to normal, back to reality, like that. It just peters out and then you're gone. So you could be out and then you're like, fuck, I'm not high no more. I need to get home and have a smoke. And then it's that whole thing of can't be out and about. And you kind of get anxiety, not anxiety, but you kind of feel weird. That you're not high. And that was the thing that I didn't like, that I felt weird when I wasn't high.
So you had to take more.
So I had to smoke to feel normal, to feel not weird. Whereas the reason I started smoking, it was because I was feeling weird inside myself. I don't feel like I need a distraction. I need to feel calm, need to feel like I'm here. It grounds you. You feel present. You feel like you're there, grounded, present. But then you feel like you're not present when you're not high. And I didn't like that.
Coming back to depression, the thing with depression is that a lot of the times it's unprocessed emotions that especially if you don't have the tools, you're not sure what's going on, so you don't understand it, so you won't speak to people. But you just mentioned you went down the route of psychedelics and cannabis. But what was actually the shift that got you out of that state? What was some of the inner work you did? What came up during the inner work to be like, fuck, I'm going to go in this different path now, or maybe feel like myself again?
I think it was just I think it takes time. I think now looking back on it, you taking drugs to escape it or feel different from it is not going to get rid of it. You're still going to have it. But I think, especially the DMT, it gave me a different plane of thought, a different way of thinking, a different experience. It allowed me to think inwards, not be less selfish, to think of myself as one. Allowed me to think outside the box. And I think I was always unknowingly thought outside the box, but it just made it more apparent. Nothing's like it. like DMT. Nothing's like it. Like it is the most, by far, it's the most craziest experience that you'll ever have on this planet. It's crazy. It is so beyond explanation, beyond anything. And I guess that's what led me back. I talk about being agnostic. I guess I didn't really think about it and as much until I did that. And I'm like, there's something other than us. There's something other than this. There's something other than just here and this and that and TVs and phones. Like, and then it made me realize it was just this a distraction. And yeah, it's a TEDS.
You announced your retirement this year, was that correct?
Yeah, not too long there.
How is that like for you when boxing's been a massive part of your life? Is there a level like identity crisis or anything, or is just like
not yet,
not yet?
But because I've always been doing other stuff like having Aboriginal culture and that, and doing stuff like I go to remote communities now and running programs, and I've got the gym, and I'm busy, man. I'm busy. Like I'm not sitting there thinking about myself. And I'm not to say in like a year's time I won't be like, oh man, I miss that feeling. I miss them walkouts. I miss that crowd and that. And if the right fight at the right time and my mindset come up, I'd probably jump back in there again.
Yep.
But at the moment now, I'm happy. There's still things I wanted to do. I never got to fight for a world title, and I think I definitely had the ability in that to do it. Things didn't fall the way that I thought they were. And I think and the biggest lesson is for me is I have to be there as a guide for my kids in their careers, whatever that may be. When you've got someone giving you advice on your career or your paths that has something to gain from it, they're not always making the best choices for you. And that's not saying that they have a kind of a negative aspect on it, like they're robbing you or whatever. I'm not saying that, but they just not thinking about. I think that everyone should have someone close to them that just wants to see them do well and gain nothing out of it and help advise. So with my kids, I'm just going to be that advisor, that person that be like, this is what I feel about it. But and just to know that they can make them decisions, and even if they stuff up, even if it doesn't work out, that I'm always going to be there to be like, make your choices, make your mistakes, but that ain't going to be the end of it. I'll be there to pick up the pieces. I never had that. I never had, someone there giving me advice that just wanted me to do well, or there's someone there that that could have advised me. Like maybe I stuck around too long in situations that I could have walked away from. And if I had that person that would be like, yeah, I got your back, no matter what, I would have, walked away from situations and not have got myself in certain situations, or, wouldn't have stayed around as long or whatever. But you know what? It's like I said, it's all a journey, man. And, I always say this, everything that I've achieved is a whole lot more than I ever would have achieved if I wouldn't have put the gloves on. I've got to do some crazy things, some crazy experiences, seen the world and traveled and done all these things. And this is coming from a little black fella from the middle of nowhere that really had nothing, no opportunities, no strong home environment, no silver spoon, no nothing. So if it wasn't for boxing, I wouldn't have done a quarter of the things that I've done, I don't think. So, and boxing's helped me with my mindset and the way I approach things and everything. So, I met a lot of good people, met a lot of shit people, know what to look out for my kids. And at the end of the day, if my kids succeed and they learn from my mistakes and my losses, then that's what we're here for, isn't it? You know, it doesn't matter if I wear the crown or they do. As long as I can help guide them, that's the main thing for me.
You're all one team.
100%, you know?
The thing is, you're only 35, bro. Life's only just beginning.
Man, I've got a plan to live plus 100. So I'm just over halfway through. So,
man, this has been a very interesting conversation. It's going all over the place, conspiracy.
That's ADHD, but man,
I love it.
That's ADHD, dude. Like jumping all over the place, and like, you know, I have to say something if it's on my head straight away, or else it's gone. It's a woozy wazzy, it flies away. So, you know, so sometimes it's a bit hard for people, like, oh, he's all over the shop, but you know, it's I'm natural with it. You know, I try to be myself.
It makes for an interesting conversation.
It does, man. It does.
Paul, man, thank you so much for your time, bro. Honestly, it's been amazing. And we have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest about knowing who it is.
Okay, let's go.
So the question for you is, what scares you the most in life?
Not being around to see my kids succeed and see my kids grow old. You know, I'm not scared of death, but going before I've seen them have kids, get married, succeed in whatever they want to do, that scares me. And leaving before my little ones have memories with me, that's my biggest fear. You know, when I go, I want them to have these memories and remember me and have these experiences. And yeah.
Once again, thank you, man. I'm excited to follow this next chapter in your journey, man.
Yeah, hopefully you can help me set up my own podcast.
For sure, bro.
Legend.
For the people that are interested to know more about you, follow you, where's the best place? Instagram, is it?
Instagram. Yeah, everything's, I post through my Instagram and it gets shared to my Facebook, my fan page, Paul Showtime Fleming, and same on Instagram, Paul Showtime Fleming, and yeah, everything's up there. And
you got the boxing gym as well.
They got the boxing gym.
Interested?
Showtime Fighters Academy. That's at Warrington on the Great Western there. Great gym and great vibe down there. So come down if you want to learn some boxing, and all levels welcome. And yeah, awesome. Thanks for having us, man. Thanks for reaching out, and
you're doing good shit, man.
Thank you, brother. Take care.
Let's go.
Yeah.